Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable Prime Minister, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Ministers, and Honourable Members of Parliament, I rise in this August Parliament to lend my support to the motion by the Honourable Prime Minister to thank His Excellency the President for his most gracious speech during the opening of the 2021 parliamentary year on the Monday, the 30th of November 2020. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is unfortunate that while we were all looking forward to a grand celebration to mark our 50th anniversary of independence, the unforeseen, unplanned, unfolded, and our beloved nation, like many others, had to adapt, cope, review, reprioritize, and adopt new changes necessary for our health and safety, survival, and well-being. While we are not out of the woods yet, Mr. Speaker, sir, the new norm demanded major shifts in some areas and perhaps minor in some. The well-being and safety of every Fijians remain the top priority of government during such trying times, and our COVID responses were of no exception, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, our economy has been severely affected, where a lot of our fellow Fijians and hoteliers have lost their jobs. More so, the civil aviation industry also suffered severely in terms of reduction in flights and travel restrictions imposed by other countries. However, that does not mean ceasing of key economic activities and programs of government as laid out in the COVID response budget. I therefore wish to assure every Fijian, Mr. Speaker, sir, that as a result of this, some projects have to be temporarily put on hold, deferred, while others had to be reprioritized to allow us as a nation to persevere and absorb together the shocks brought about by this deadly pandemic. Mr. Speaker, sir, let us also not forget that 2020 is a unique year and one that will be registered in our records as a year in which Fiji suffered a double blow in two separately declared catastrophes, COVID-19 and Tropical Cyclone Harold, that hit us simultaneously, which is a first, Mr. Speaker, sir, in our history. Mr. Speaker, sir, the emergency committee convened on the 9th of April recommending for the declaration of a state of natural disaster for the worst affected areas. On the 12th of April 2020, Cabinet declared a state of natural disaster over certain parts of Fiji severely affected by TC Harold. Subsequently, on the 15th of April, due to the increase in numbers of COVID cases, Cabinet again declared a state of natural disaster for the whole of Fiji. Both declarations were for an initial period of 30 days. This was unprecedented and has never happened in our history. It is against this background, Mr. Speaker, sir, that I wish to make my contribution to the motion before the House. Mr. Speaker, sir, I believe that our head of state has quite clearly articulated in his opening address government's focus in this new parliamentary session. This is to continue to drive bluer, greener, and more inclusive and more sustainable development through three key priorities: our continued containment of COVID-19, our economic recovery, and our effective response to the climate, oceans, and biodiversity crisis. On COVID-19 containment, Mr. Speaker, sir, our containment of COVID-19 remains the first key priority of government in this new session of Parliament. I would like to echo the same sentiments of His Excellency in offering our gratitude to the frontline workers battling COVID-19 on all fronts, to all our health workers, members of the Republic of Fiji military forces who accompanied the contact tracing teams and manned the isolation centers, the Fiji police force who worked tirelessly monitoring the movement during the lockdown period in Lautoka, Suva, Sosoy in Lambasa, and Bunidangi settlement in Raketi, and the manning of checkpoints around the country, and of course other government officials. I thank them for their courageous work and for their unwavering dedication to duty in maintaining Fiji as a COVID-contained country in the Pacific. Our aspiration to grow as a nation is a continuing challenge amidst this pandemic, and this government will aspire to rise above it. Mr. Speaker, sir, our COVID-19 containment efforts continues to be a success, not only because of the selfless dedication of all our frontline workers, but in great part is also attributed to the steady, sensible and decisive leadership that this government continues to provide under the Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, sir, our citizens are the main priority of this government, and we are committed in providing them the best services we can offer in addressing the operational requirements of COVID-19 and other threats to the disciplined services that come under my purview. My ministry is continuously working to elevate our capabilities and capacities through the review of legislation governing the two disciplined forces and other associated laws to ensure that their broader and more dynamic roles are supported, and of course the continuation of the provision of required technical knowledge, training and education. Let me focus on the bills, Mr. Speaker, sir, as alluded to by His Excellency. In His Excellency's speech, Mr. Speaker, sir, he had mentioned multiple bills that will be considered in this session of Parliament, two of which are under my defence portfolio. Firstly, the draft Volatile Substance Abuse Bill, which provides a legal framework for the prevention of volatile substance abuse and the protection of persons, particularly children. The draft bill has been taken to the public through online submission before it will be forwarded to Parliament for debate. On the Search and Rescue Bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Search and Rescue Bill, which will embrace current practices for Fiji's search and rescue services and, of course, empower agencies. It will set up the Fiji Rescue Coordination Center, collocated and managed by the Naval Division of the RFMF, and facilitate the subsequent alignment of the three classes of search and rescue, namely land, maritime and aeronautical, to the Rescue Coordination Center, or the RCC. Mr. Speaker, sir, this setup is envisaged to align the existing fragmented responses in a more coordinated approach. This particularly is crucial for the areas that are outside Fiji's sovereign control but falls within our search and rescue region, which includes Tuvalu and parts of Kiribati. Let me give an example of how this was tested and utilized recently, Mr. Speaker, sir. The Fiji Rescue Center, very lately in November, on the 20th of November, received a distress call from Honolulu, RCC. A seriously injured Filipino national on board a fishing vessel close to Tarawa, Kiribati, required medical evacuation. The medevac was successful through the coordination of the agencies that I have mentioned already, Mr. Speaker, sir, and of course with the assistance of the New Zealand government through the provision of a military aircraft. For this particular case, Mr. Speaker, sir, because of Kiribati's COVID-free status, the injured fisherman was not allowed to be taken to Kiribati. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the activation of our search and rescue coordination within the region, he was picked up by the by the New Zealand aircraft and brought into Lautoka, and the fisherman, Mr. Speaker, sir, is now recovering at Lautoka Hospital. We've just saved a life. Life is precious, Mr. Speaker, sir. Let me focus on legislative reviews. Mr. Speaker, sir, work has already started for the review of the legal framework supporting our disciplined forces. This includes the RFMF Act, the Manual of Military Law, and the Fiji Police Act. The RFMF Act, Mr. Speaker, sir, the RFMF's role in the Constitution is to oversee the security and well-being of the people of this beloved nation. This dynamic role requires a review of its current setup, and this starts with a review of the existing Republic of Fiji Military Forces Act. The MML, Mr. Speaker, sir, or the Manual of Military Law, Mr. Speaker, sir, you would know that Fiji's military justice processes and procedures are based on the colonial-era British Army Act of 1955. The RFMF has been working with the New Zealand Defence Force, who had already undergone their review and are now working with ours for the review of the MML. Mr. Speaker, sir, on completion of the current reviews, the new portions and relevant supplementary legislations will greatly enhance the administrative and disciplinary processes within the RFMF. The new manual will be, of course, modern, user-friendly, and of course tested as well for the use of our military force. Let me turn to the Fiji Police Act, Mr. Speaker, sir. In addition, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Fiji Police is undergoing a similar review of its principal legislation, the Fiji Police Act of 1965. You will see, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this reviews are long overdue. The 1965 Police Act is the overarching law that governs the force. Comprehensive research has been conducted in the review of the Act, Mr. Speaker, sir, and we expect to soon carry out public consultations before bringing the bill to Parliament. Mr. Speaker, sir, concurrently, serious efforts are also undertaken in the enhancing of the technical knowledge, training and education of our service personnel, and that will be continued right throughout, Mr. Speaker, sir. Again, let me say that the review of these bills will not only ensure that law and order are maintained, but will also give confidence to our investors, our development partners, and civil society. On economic recovery, Mr. Speaker, sir, with the 42 confirmed cases and only 2 COVID-19 related deaths, Fiji has managed the pandemic remarkably well. Other island nations with comparable population size, GDP per capita, and dependence on tourism have fared worse. At the official launch of the Pacific Insurance and Climate Change Adaptation Program last week, the Governor of the Reserve Bank of Fiji confirmed that our economy has contracted by 19.8%, even though it was forecasted initially to contract by 21.7%. This reduction in negative growth is a testament of our collective efforts to attain economic recovery. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me focus on rural programs. I always say, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this is the best time to be a rural Fijian. Through this pandemic, we have come to witness how our rural-based economy has cushioned the blow to our national economy in terms of providing to be more resilient during times of disasters, and of course, with the support given to MSMEs and other income-generating projects. And I think the Minister for Fisheries, Forestry, and of course Agriculture as well have shed some light already on these respective programs. But I'll just focus on the programs that are in my ministry. Let me focus on self-help programs, Mr. Speaker, sir. The ministry's self-help program has seen a paradigm shift from solely focusing on social projects to a livelihoods approach through income-generating projects as a means of empowering rural communities. In the last 3 years alone, the ministry has invested over $1 million in income generation projects across the 4 divisions. And of course, you will have heard about cases on the rural millionaire concept that has been piloted in Sawayake, in Ngau, and of course other places like Nasolo in the province of Mbua. And let me refer to Nasolo particularly, Mr. Speaker, sir, with an initial injection of $45,000 for their farm roads, Mr. Speaker, sir. The community has gone into serious farming, and this year they have managed to construct a bridge worth $41,000 from the finance, purely financed by the community themselves, Mr. Speaker, sir. This is a leading example of how our rural development programs empower our rural people to become more self-sufficient, Mr. Speaker, sir. National security, Mr. Speaker, sir, from a national security perspective, the best way to protect our economy is to protect our people. Therefore, the need to invest in areas within our health sector that deals with infectious diseases such as COVID-19 will allow us to be more proactive for any future occurrences. Mr. Speaker, sir, under the draft National Security Strategy, health security is one of the thematic areas that will directly address some of the limitations that we encountered during the current pandemic. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the context of globalization and further economic integration in recent decades, the relationship between the economy and national security has become increasingly interlinked. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also wish to acknowledge our bilateral partners in assisting us during this crucial period. They have contributed to the economy by engaging the local workforce and companies in multi-million-dollar projects that are currently ongoing. Let me just give an example about BlackRock Camp in Nandi. International companies have engaged locals to continue with the construction until such time the travel restrictions are lifted. The BlackRock project, Mr. Speaker, sir, alone has about 180 to 200 Fijian construction workers on site every day. The construction has poured approximately $1.5 million per month into our local economy. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me just focus on our response to the climate, oceans, and biodiversity crisis. Recalling the third key priority of government as set out in His Excellency's opening address of developing an effective response to the climate, oceans, and biodiversity crisis, I wish to speak on how both my portfolio ministries are advancing in this area. The Ministry of Defense, National Security and Policing, through the draft National Security Strategy, has prioritized climate change and climate-induced security threats as the single greatest threat to our livelihoods. In providing a security lens to this issue, we have hosted a number of key workshops in partnership with the governments of Australia and the United States of America, with the aim of shaping agency response or thinking cycles in mitigating future threats stemming from the effects of climate change. Mr. Speaker, sir, on climate action, as His Excellency alluded to, Fijians remain on the front line of the worst climate impacts, while Fijian voices stay at the forefront of the global campaign to curb emissions and build a more resilient world. Mr. Speaker, sir, the UN World Risk Report places Fiji and a number of Pacific Island countries as the most vulnerable to natural disasters in the world, and these disasters are anticipated to become more frequent and intense, with significant impacts on our communities and economy. Mr. Speaker, sir, the International Displacement Monitoring Center forecasted our displacement risk at 5,800 people on average for any given year that could be displaced by storm surges, earthquakes, cyclones, and tsunamis. This is an alarming figure if we do not mitigate now. Fiji, therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, is chosen with 4 other Pacific Island countries to be a recipient of a shared €3 million funding over a 3-year period for a project titled Understanding and Enhancing Preparedness and Response to the Risk of Disaster Placement in the Pacific. And under that project, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are looking at, again, how we have addressed this matter previously, and of course guided by the relocation guidelines, and of course our recent displacement policy developed together with the Relocation Trust Fund. And one of the key examples very lately, Mr. Speaker, sir, is in Narikoso in Kandavu, where 7 villages has been relocated, and of course this falls under this program, Mr. Speaker, sir. National preparedness. Mr. Speaker, sir, whilst recovering from the effects of TC Herald and the pandemic, we are now again in our cyclone season. And as I speak, we have 2 tropical depressions developing in the region, which is expected to slightly affect us over the weekend. No need to panic, Mr. Speaker, sir, but let's be vigilant and let's monitor the developments very, very closely, sir. But let me assure this August House that a lot of preparations have been carried out, and that includes the National Emergency Operations Center, and the list goes on, Mr. Speaker, sir. Before I conclude, let me just go through some of the comments made by the other side of the House. Let me start again with the Honorable Mikael Mbulnauda, stating in his statement that the Honorable Prime Minister needs to confess his spirit of evilness in ordering killings and alleged self-killing of Kaloni Vale at the Navy boat building factory in Wallu Bay by himself, in his own hands, by a concrete block, smashing his head, not only once but many times, that his wife could not recognize and identify him at CWM Hospital. And he goes on to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, if that is true, why bring that issue into Parliament if he does not have concrete evidence about the case, Mr. Speaker, sir? He has 2 options as an honourable member. You either apologize to the Honourable Prime Minister through the Honourable Speaker, or go outside, face the media. You've been running away from the media with no comments. Do the honourable thing. Face the media, tell them the truth. Otherwise, that's a cowardly act when you hide behind the curtains of parliamentary privilege in this House. Don't bring rubbish into the House. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me turn to the leader of the Sodelpa party. I was shocked when he made a statement. Let me read. To pay for the savings, Mr. Speaker, we need to raise about $852.8 million. There are areas where we can save. We can sharpen the pencil and go through the books. But the very first thing that he stated, stop peacekeeping and redeploy troops to border control, which will give us a saving of $45.3 million. I don't know whether this is a knee-jerk solution, a band-aid, short-sighted solution, or he was still in a state of the shock when his leader. It's my birthday, Mr. Speaker, so give me 5 more minutes. Please. He was still in a shock when his leader resigned. Let me remind the honorable member that Fiji has been involved in peacekeeping for over 42 years. And this commitment has been upheld by successive Fijian governments as Fiji's contribution to the UN mandate. Is that his own thinking, or is that a party approach, Mr. Speaker, sir? Is it part of their strategy? Where is their foreign policy? Fiji respects multilateralism. We are punching above our own weight because we are a small country. We cannot influence the world, we cannot influence the region, but this contribution is so important. And to come from a leader of a party is very, very irresponsible, Mr. Speaker, sir. Let alone the loss of jobs. Bring the people home, there'll be loss of jobs. We already have people who have lost their jobs in the country, and yet you bring in more people and they will lose their jobs. I'll just conclude. Swai. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I conclude, I wish to remind and urge all members of this August House of our collective responsibility and the importance of working together in partnership at all levels, government and society as a whole. I have said it so many times, and I'll say it again. We can only work better if we coordinate better, work smarter, and more effectively. Mr. Speaker, sir, as we begin this new season of Parliament, it is my sincere hope that we as members of Parliament will take His Excellency's address seriously. It is our duty as parliamentarians, leaders, and responsible citizens that we be vigilant and take all necessary measures to ensure that we remain COVID contained. Therefore, it is imperative, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we rally together for the sake of our people. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to address Parliament, and also thank His Excellency, the President, for his most gracious address to the House. With those words, I wish all members of this August Parliament a safe and Merry Christmas and a new year filled with amazing opportunities and prosperity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Oh, thank you.